All right, guys. Well, we finally made it to the empty tomb, and this is the crux of it all, right? The empty tomb is the most important piece of all of this. Everything that we've been studying so far really doesn't mean anything if this part isn't true. If the empty tomb isn't true, then everything that we worship for, everything that we do as far as Christianity goes, if the empty tomb didn't actually happen, then none of this matters, right? That's what Paul says, that if Jesus didn't rise from the grave, then our faith is in vain, is what he says. And some people, this is what blows my mind, because there's actually some people who claim and say that they are Christians, but they don't believe that Jesus actually rose from the dead. Like, what in the world? Like, that doesn't make sense to me, because if Jesus didn't raise from the dead, then none of this stuff matters, right? You're putting your faith into a teaching of a man who claimed to be God, but didn't actually pull off the things that he said he was going to do. Like, if you don't believe that the empty tomb is real, your faith it's in vain. It's worthless. It doesn't mean anything. You might as well just go and do whatever you want to. But if the empty tomb is real, if Jesus did in fact raise from the dead, that changes everything. It changes everything about everything. It changes the way that I live. It changes the way that I parent. It changes the way that I drive my car. It changes the way that I do my job at work. It changes everything. And I'm here to tell you that the tomb is empty. We've talked about this before. We can go into a lot more, but there's lots and lots of evidence to point to the fact that this did in fact happen. That this is not just some legend that arose over time. That this is a factual, historical detail, and it's the one that matters more than anything. But we did it. Jesus said that he was going to die and then raise again, and that's exactly what happened. He made claims to be God. We've talked about that in the past. Whenever he said, before Abraham was, I am, that was a divinity claim, and he backs it up by dying and raising from the dead, just like he said he would do. And this is the crux of it all, and we get to see it fold out. We get to see the disciples see the empty tomb. We get to see the disciples encounter Jesus. In fact, one of the things that whenever he reveals himself to the disciples, it says, this is actually really powerful. It says that he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. Like, this is priming them and getting them ready to go and be and do the things that he called them to do. That they are going to be world changers, that they're going to be disciple makers, that they're going to go in to the world and do everything that Jesus has taught them to do. We even have an encounter where one of the guys is missing. Do you know who it was? It's the guy that we painfully refer to as Doubting Thomas. I really have a problem with that nickname that we've ascribed to him. I don't know the origins of Doubting Thomas, like where it originated from, but yeah, he didn't believe, right? But neither did the women whenever they found the tomb empty. We just read it. They went to the tomb and they're like, he's not here, and they're like going to the disciples, Jesus's body's missing. We don't know what they've done with it, right? Even whenever they encounter Jesus, they think he's the gardener. Like, look, if you know where his body is, just let us know. Like they don't see the empty tomb and immediately think Jesus is risen. They think somebody stole the body. But Thomas has this encounter. Well, Jesus reveals himself to the 10 because Judas has killed himself. And they tell Thomas when he comes later, because he wasn't there, Jesus is alive. He was here. And he's like, well, unless I touch the nail prints in his hands, unless I can, put my hand in the mark on his side where they shoved the spear in. He said, unless I can see it and touch it, I don't believe it. And that's where we get the term Doubting Thomas. But Jesus does show up and he sees him and says, Jesus, like, you're touched. He's like, Lord, you're alive, right? But again, the problem that I have with calling him Doubting Thomas is because this guy is going to go on and do some amazing things. Extra biblical history tells us that Thomas is going to go and he's going to die for the sake of the gospel. that he is going to take the gospel into India. He's going to be stabbed with a spear, all because he believes that Jesus rose from the dead. Does that sound like somebody who doubts? Like, if you have doubts, you're not going to be like, whoa, hey, put that spear down. I'm not real sure about this. It's just what I think. It's just what I believe. It's what my heart tells me. No, he was convinced. He knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that Jesus was and is the Messiah, that Jesus lived, died, rose again. He knew it, and he was willing to take the gospel where it needed to go, even if it meant him losing his life. They come at him with the spear, and he's like, guys, I'm just telling you what I see, what I've seen with my eyes, what I've experienced. I know that Jesus is who he says he is. And if you'll put your faith in him, right? So he lays his life down for the sake of the gospel because he is convinced. And then we see this also, church history tells us the same thing about 10 out of the 12 that are going to do the same thing. Peter's going to be crucified upside down, right? We see all the others. Andrew church history tells us that he was tied to a cross instead of nailed to it, and that even being tied to the cross in agony, dying over a long period of time, when people come by, he would preach the gospel to them, right? Over and over and over again, these guys are going to lay down their lives for the sake of the gospel because they saw an empty tomb. And the only explanation for the empty tomb is that Jesus rose again. And how do we know that? Because they saw it. They saw him. Jesus spends 40 days. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. But Jesus spends 40 days talking with these guys, teaching them. He's like, hey, remember when I said this? This is what that meant. And he teaches them, and he pours into them, and he sends them out to change the world. And guess what? We're supposed to do the same thing. Jesus tells Thomas something very interesting. Thomas sees him. He's like, Lord, I believe you're alive. And Jesus says, well, you believe because you see me. He said, but blessed are those who believe and have not seen. That's us. I haven't seen Jesus physically alive. I haven't seen him physically risen from the dead, but I believe it. I believe there's plenty of evidence to suggest, and not suggest, to prove that he is who he says he is. And I have faith in my heart. I believe that Jesus is who he says he is. And you do too, right? So that's us. We are those who, we haven't seen it, but we believe it. And he says those guys are blessed. And we're supposed to do the same thing that Thomas and all these other guys did. That we're supposed to take the gospel. And you're probably not going to take the gospel to a place where they're going to come at you with a spear. But we've seen in recent weeks that you can lose your life for speaking up for the things of God. And I'm not saying that I want that for anybody, but we have to have a willingness in our heart. We have to be convinced that no matter what, Jesus is King, and we're going to speak up for him no matter what. Get with your groups, talk about this. What stood out to you? What has encouraged you? What do you take from this? Get with your groups, talk about it. Let's keep growing. We've just got a little bit of time left in our devotions together. Let's make the best of it. God bless you. I love you. Let's have an awesome day. Let's go change the world.